Hopefully you have a lesson or practice video recorded from the first session and are ready to move to the next step. The next step is using a video editor. So what is a video editor? It is any program that you can use to modify your recordings. Some basic examples of this are cutting out parts of the video or applying a filter. Today we aren't going to look at one specific program, but rather common features among many. This will include tools and terminology that you should find in different programs. I am most familiar with Adobe Premiere Elements 15, and in doing research for this video I found a lot of similarities between my main program, Premiere Elements 15, with the most recent form of Premiere Elements, and also DaVinci Resolve. Elements 15 is no longer available for purchase. Elements 2019 can be bought or used as a subscription, and DaVinci Resolve is free with the link to the homepage in the description below. I found the Elements programs to be considerably more intuitive than DaVinci, but DaVinci is free, which is a large upside. In the first educational section of this video, we will cover adding media, your media storage and tracks, or in simpler terms, making things exist. First, you will need to get your video into the program. In Elements, you will simply need to hit the Add Media button, like so, and then go to Files and Folders, and select the clips you would like to import. DaVinci is slightly different. You will need to hit File and then Import File and Import Media. Regardless of what program you're using, you're going to be looking for a button that says Import Media or Add Media. Now, before advancing, I find it easier to figure out a program when I know the terms it is using, so let's go over what they mean by media. Media is just any file that will impact the way your video looks or sounds. This could be an MP4, which is a video file, having both moving picture and audio. It could also be an MP3, which is just audio, but media also goes to the simpler things like just basic pictures as well. So in summary, media is anything you will be bringing into your editor program, and then later you will be modifying it and putting it in an organized fashion for a finished product. The next step after adding a piece of media will have it be going into your project assets. This is shared in many programs again, but it is called something different. For example, if I were to import the same media into DaVinci Resolve, it'll show up in a different location. It will be called the media pool. Again, just look for terms like media pool or project assets or anything indicating things that you have brought into your program. From here, you will be able to drag your media residing in your project assets or your media pool onto the tracks portion of your video. You can think of the tracks portion as the timeline to your video. Each track is capable of holding media at a certain time and for a certain length. In Elements, tracks are specifically labeled as audio tracks and video tracks to represent which type of media it can hold. If you look at the file I imported, it has both a video element and an audio element, so it will take up two tracks at the same time. DaVinci is different in that it doesn't separate between audio and video tracks when you drag in a video clip, and aside from that, it works just the same. You should be able to drag and drop it onto your timeline or the tracks portion of your video. So again, regardless of program, drag from your media collection onto your tracks. And another important thing to remember is it is a timeline, so you want it to start at the very beginning. So place it such that your video starts to the left. Like I said, it's a timeline, so the left is the beginning, and moving down to the right just marks the video going farther along. You can see that at certain points in time there are numbers marking how long it is. With, for example, this is 4 seconds, and then the 29 is just a fraction of a second there. To navigate your video, you will be using the red line tool. As far as I can tell, the red line tool is a constant among all video editing programs. You can drag the red line to change what part of the video you're currently observing. Hitting the play button will play the video forwards from where the red line currently is. If you want to navigate around your tracks better and look at your timeline from a different perspective, you can look around. It is different per program, but there should be a zoom in and out slider somewhere and a horizontal scroll wheel. Let's try adding another media to go over what we've done so far. For now, I'm going to just choose a number 3. It will go into project assets, and again, I can drag it down onto my timeline. Whenever you use a media that is just a still image, it defaults to being 5 seconds long. So if you play the video out, it'll be around for 5 seconds and then it will go away. And this works pretty much identically the same in all programs. It might not default to 5 seconds, but that's not an issue because you can drag it out to make it shorter or longer by grabbing either of the sides of it and stretching them out. If you want to reposition where it is in your video, like if you want it to be earlier, so farther to the left, you want to grab it by the center and drag it in that direction. You can also use the dragging tool to move it up or down onto different tracks. So video 3 down to video 2, or I can put it only at the end of the video over here. If you want to move the image in a slightly different way and not move it on your timeline but move it in the video preview, you can click on it and you'll get a resizing tool and you can make it smaller and move it around as well. Now let's look at a very important tool, the cut tool. This tool is marked by a pair of scissors. In Elements, it's right on the red line. However, in DaVinci, it is a bit farther away. Either way, it should be marked by some scissors, and you can find that icon and press it, and it should be consistent among programs from there. It's just positioned somewhere else. So what the cut clip does, or cut tool rather, is it changes your media into smaller clips. So I've cut this one apart, and now it is 2 separate things, and I can move them individually of each other. So here's the video, and then there's some blank space where there's nothing at the moment, and then the video again. So I used a new terminology in this, and I called it a clip. So let's clarify, what is that? A clip is anything on your tracks, whether it be an audio clip or a video clip. Basically, it is one of these colored rectangles that lives in the tracks. Now is a great time to interject and bring up the amazing shortcut that is Ctrl plus Z. Pressing Z while you are holding down Ctrl will undo your most recent action. Let's say that I didn't actually want to cut this clip. I wanted to keep it as one big clip. So I can hit Ctrl Z a couple times and it will undo the movements I made to it. And then once it's back together, I can take it back an action further and undo the cut tool that I did. So now we can safely use the cut tool and undo any mistakes we might make. So let's get to a practical use for it. To demonstrate this, I'm going to be using a different media. So I'm going to go over the example again of adding in a media. So this is when I demonstrate Premiere. I have to have OBS open at the beginning of the video, which you don't want to show people. So for this section, that's me minimizing OBS, and then I open Premiere. So I'm going to cut it into 2 parts for now. This left one is what I was doing when I was minimizing OBS, and the right one is me talking through Premiere. So on the left one, I'm going to hit delete on it. You can also go to right click and delete, or just the delete key. And now remember, you want it all the way to the left, so take this clip and drag it over. Now it just starts at the beginning where I want it to start. I'm going to do the same thing at the end when I go back to OBS as well. If I want to remove a portion of my video from the middle, it's quite similar. The only difference is I'm going to have to make 2 cuts. You're going to make a cut at the beginning of the section you want to remove, and at the end of the section you want to remove, and then you have now made 3 clips. You want to select the middle one and delete it. Again, you can either right click and press delete or use the delete key on your keyboard. This process of removing middle bits can potentially streamline your video and make it a decent amount faster. I recommend doing the process of taking out smaller portions of your primary video clip at the beginning of the process, because if you put a bunch of effects and overlays and extra pictures into tracks video 2 and video 3, and then you attempt to trim down your main clip, it will no longer line up correctly. So I would recommend doing the grunt work of taking out the smaller sections first and then going back and doing the special effects. This concludes the section of the video on necessitated skills. Now we can get to the more fun half of things. I will be teaching about effects. Your effects tab is located somewhere different per program, but the functionality is the same. In Elements, it is on the right side of your program. It is this tab labeled Apply Effects. Then you can find a bunch of different video ones, and you can drag and drop them onto a clip. In Premiere, it is the same exact system, however it's in a different tab up here called Effects. Then you can find something and place it onto your video. So let's say I want this blur, I can drag it and drop it onto the video. The problem is, at the moment, the entire video is just the same clip, so it is applied to the whole clip. If you want to do a smaller section of an effect, again, right there, I just did Control-Z to undo it. What you're going to want to do is cut it into smaller pieces, just like deleting middle section, and then you can drag your effect onto just a smaller section on the middle. So it would look like it would be without the effect, and then it would get it for just the duration of your new clip and then lose it again. In Premiere, it works exactly the same. You can drag an effect onto either of the two clips, and it will be there for that clip. Another tool that works in a similar manner in many programs is transitions. I'm going to select a different file for transitions because you need to be able to see the difference between a transition. So if I cut out a middle section, right, let's say from here to here, I don't want to keep in the video, and I delete it. These two next to each other, if you play them out, will look pretty choppy sometimes, so you might want to find a transition, which is often seen in this type of icon where it's something turning into something else. Again, in DaVinci it is slightly different, but again it's just called transitions and it will function the same. So I frequently use the cross dissolve transition, and I would recommend using that. So when you drag it onto a clip, just like an effect, it goes between two clips, and you can place it in, and then what it will look like when you play it out is of course different per clip, but the cross dissolve looks like that. Another important part of transitions that some people forget about is that it doesn't have to necessarily be between two videos. If you have an image inside of your video 2 clip, right, it just comes on screen instantly and then leaves the screen instantly. You can do any transition. I'll use wipe as an example, and you can put it between a solid image and nothing, and then it will wipe onto the screen from nothing. And you can also do this to make it leave. So now it looks, it's not quite animated, but it looks like a nice visual coming and going. So now you know how to add effects and add transitions, but there's still another way to modify clips. So for this, I'm going to say I only want to modify this much of the video as an example. Now I can right click on it and get a whole list of options here. For now, let's say I hover over clip and I want to use time stretch. You're going to use this to speed up or slow down a video. So I'm going to say it plays at 500% speed, right? It goes by really quickly now. And there's been a problem in that the audio for it now sounds quite strange. So I again am going to right click on the clip I want to affect, and there's an option here called delete audio, and you can see that there's nothing left in the audio track after that. I have thrown at you most of what you will need to edit, so now is a good opportunity for a quick understanding check. You should know what media is and how to import it into your media storage. From here, you should be able to drag the media to your tracks and be able to visualize how your tracks represent a timeline. Once your media is on your timeline, you can use the cut tool to make smaller clips and cut out middle portions to shorten the video. You can modify these clips further in 3 main ways. You can drag and drop effects onto them, as well as dragging transitions, but you also have the option to right-click them. All of these steps are core to the understanding of different editing programs, and all of these options are available in editing programs. Next, I'm going to go over two tools that will help you add extra information to your video. So if you missed a small talking point, but you don't want to completely restart your recording, there are a couple good options. One of them is the titles or text feature. It's often called titles, but you can use it for basic text. It doesn't have to be like a huge title. So you can drag it on to your video, and from here you have the ability to edit it, and you have your font sizes and color, pretty much everything you would find in a normal text editor, right? So I'm just going to write sample text on here. From here, it should act like any normal picture file, and you can drag it around and move it. Same thing on the timeline as well. If you want to go back and change what your text says, you will have to double click on it on your timeline, and this tab opens up again. If you try to double click on it in your video editor, it doesn't do anything. DaVinci works similar, but you will need to go to your effects library to find your titles, and then you can again drag and drop them, and you will have similar options. A similar tool to relay extra information over top is going to be the voice recording feature. In Premiere, you will have to go to this left section of your screen and change from the classic view to the audio view. And then from here, you can click the red circle to add narration and record over top. As you can see, this is picking up my microphone right now. Most recording programs, you will see the red circle as a designation that you are able to record from there. I looked around for a decent while in DaVinci and I couldn't find that option, so if you want to record another voice clip, I would recommend doing it in OBS and then deleting the video from that file, and then you will be left with just what you wanted to add in over top. Once your video is done, you must save it as an MP4 file. If you save it normally, it will be fine to work on later because it saves as a work in progress type file, which means that it keeps all the separate layers there. But if you want it as a usable type of video, you will need to export it as an MP4. So how you do that is you look for a button that has the keyword export. In Premiere Elements, it's the top right here, and it should look like this, and in DaVinci, it actually happens to be in the same location as well. But again, you're looking for the keyword export. And just like that, you've edited a video. You've handled production all the way through recording and editing. I hope this video was helpful, and I look forward to seeing the videos you all produce. There's plenty more in these programs for you to discover, like changing effects over time, animation, and finer audio control, but the set of tools I taught you today is a great way to get out there and start making videos.